Welcome everyone to another fun episode of Mihna's Talks AI. And today we have another very exciting guest joining us. Mike, why don't you say a little bit about yourself?
Sure, Manas. Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Todasco. I am a visiting fellow at the AI Center, the James Silberad Center at San Diego State University. I have been in the world of technology for some time. I used to be at PayPal, the last through 2022, where I was running the innovation group there. And I'm also a father, and I like to go for long walks. That's everything about me, I guess.
In addition to that too, like go and share all of your knowledge and insight in a lot of different podcasts. You share a lot of that in your newsletters as well. So just before starting the recording, I was telling Mike how I have really enjoyed reading some of his newsletters. So one of it that truly stood out to me, maybe because it relates to what I do as well. It's AI and storytelling. You have wrote a lot about how AI can be used in storytelling. So talk a little bit about that. Like how do you see AI tools impacting the creative process for writers and content creators, both positively and negatively? And yeah, feel free to, the floor is
Yeah.
yours.
Here's I'm going to tell you how AI has been great for this and how AI is not so great.
Yeah.
I kind of like talk about the good and the bad here. And I think I will talk from a perspective of
Mm-hmm.
a writer, because that's really what I am and what I consider myself to be in that world. But yeah, you're right. It could apply to many other types of content and so forth. So at one end of the spectrum, since 2022, I've actually been publishing entirely AI written books on Amazon. So it is under the pen name Alex Irons.
Okay.
So not under my pen name. I give all the money to charity, but like these are AI written books. And I will tell you, every single one of them is pretty bad. And I don't try and hide that it's AI. I do write the foreword myself, but I'm like, hey, this is an AI book. This is meant to mark a point in time, but here's the
But it's
story.
selling, right? Is it selling?
They're selling okay. I
Okay.
don't push them. I don't promote. I don't encourage your listeners to go and just buy them or anything. Again, that's why I
Yeah.
give the money to charity, because I'm like, I feel bad about doing this. But for me, it's an experiment. It's an experiment to actually see, can AI write a full length book that is actually interesting enough for me to read. And I read about 50 books a year. So like, I read a lot of books, but like it's nowhere near where it could be for something like that. AI can write an email well. It can write you a great poem or what. It could do a lot of things like that, but it can't write a book, because the process of writing a book takes a lot of work. And I'm not saying it won't. It will. It actually will be able to write a book at some point in time. But we're nowhere near that now. It's just not interesting, because like all the rigor that goes into writing that. So they're like, well, okay, Mike's saying that means AI is useless for writing. Not at all.
No.
Where it does shine. So one of the things I'm actually doing right now is I'm writing a few children's books. I would promote them more, but they're actually not supposed to come out till 2026. So unless you're seeing this in the very distant future, then you could go out and buy them. But so I'm working on a series of children's books right now. They're very science based, and I have AI as kind of my co-writing partner. I am the one leading the charge and all that. Occasionally, I mean, first, I'll often have scientific questions. I'll be like, hey, I'm trying to do this. Like, is there a scientific basis in what I'm trying to do in this part? And it'll give me very thoughtful answers of that. And sometimes I'm just working on something. I'm like, I need something funny here, and I don't quite have it. Give me 10 things. And what the AI will do is it will give options. And almost without a doubt, none of those will be the exact option I want, but there will be elements in each of them. And I'm like, oh, I never thought about that. Well, if I rephrase what they said here, then that actually becomes
So it
funny.
helps with your like thinking thought process of how you're crafting.
It is a co-writer who's kind of a brainstorming partner, to your point,
Yeah.
that never gets tired, that is always there, that can read what you've already written in seconds. Because I've already written one of the stories, so I could say, hey, I want to match this style, this format. So give me a couple of things that I could put in here. It's super helpful for that. And look, from that perspective, it is the way that I will say a lot of people I know who are authors that I know personally are using these today. They might not be as public about that as I am,
Yeah.
but this is just how writing is going to be done in the future. Just how most people don't write on typewriters anymore. They will use other grammatical tools for editing and so forth. Like, that's what AI is going to do. And, it's even great to just kind of proofread things, to just say,
Mhm.
like, hey, take a look at this and tell me where are the parts that aren't as good in this. Like, where does the story lag? Where is there a better opportunity? Like, it'll take that, digest what I wrote, and it'll give me some feedback. And 50% I discard, but 50% is good. And frankly, if I was sending it to 10 of my friends, it probably would be a similar ratio to that, but
Yeah.
just AI gives it instantaneously.
That's very fascinating. But what do you think in terms of the ethical consideration? Like, do you think it's diminishing creativity, or is it entirely perspective based on how the individual, like you said, some authors are very upfront about like they're using AI, some are not. So where would you say in terms of ethical consideration?
Look, I think Joanna Penn, who is a podcaster and has been writing about AI for years, and she's an author as well. She has, I think, in all of her work, she has basically an AI ethics guideline that she follows, and she just kind of publishes that as part of her byline. And I think that's something that all authors should do. I mean, I think we should be upfront and saying, hey, this is how we're using these tools and so forth. The reality is, if you're using a computer or a smartphone, you're using AI, like full stop. If you use Google Maps, if you are using Google even to do research, if you are using some sort of social network or something that has an algorithmically generated feed, these are all using machine learning and AI, but it's just behind the scenes.
Yes.
And frankly, if you're using Grammarly or Microsoft Word or any, those are all using AI to do what they're trying to do with their prediction models. Where I think for all of us, though, it's not to the point, again, where it's going to just be able to kind of take something and run with it. It will be to that point. And that's why I think today it's important for people who are creators to set the boundaries, set the stage for what it is that they do want to do, and just be upfront about it.
Mhm.
I think it's just so important. Amazon, when I upload books, when anybody uploads books to Amazon now, they actually say how much of this was generated with AI. So they're requiring it. Yeah, people can lie about that.
Yeah.
And I think that's an ethical issue. That's a bigger
Yeah.
ethical issue in my own
Yeah.
mind. I think we just have to be upfront. And eventually, in a couple of years, we're going to be on the other side of this, and it's just going to be normal. It's just going to be
Hmm.
normal to use
Hmm.
AI to help you create better content.
Hmm.
Because again, it's still my ideas, my thoughts. It's similar to writers do this all the time. They will write a chapter of a book and they'll send it off to 10 friends.
Yeah.
Say, give me
It's
feedback
the
and all of
exact
this.
same.
Does that mean it's not the writer's work anymore? Well, no, they're the ones ultimately making the decision. It's a very similar thing happening here.
Yeah, I think it's really not, like I know right now we are on this buzzworthy era where, AI is a big thing. AI in education, storytelling, retail, like we're seeing like everything in AI. But a lot of the concerns that people have, I think, at least from my perspective, I think it's more so the human behaviors rather than the AI being the problem. So for our next topic, I was thinking a lot about like AI and how it's gonna impact students, how students are using AI in generating their content for school, how they're learning. There are lots of discussions ongoing right now. I graduated before I had AI as a supporting partner, but when I went to school, I used to use like Coursera or other, I forgot the name of the platform, but where you could kind of put your problem and then in a couple of hours you come back and someone solves that for you.
Oh, like Chubb?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was
Yeah,
using
which
all
is
that.
now basically out of business effectively because of ChatGPT. But yeah,
Yeah,
or
but we
Chubb or whatever it
already,
is. Yeah. I know what
yeah,
you're
we
talking about.
already had systems and tools like that before. It's just AI right now is doing it faster.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's your take on that? Like, what do you think about like how, students are perceiving it and how it's going to impact the education in
I think it's going to
general?
be wonderful for education.
Yeah.
I'll say why. I think there's going to be some growing pains now. When this initially came out, one of the first, I actually wrote a piece that came out. I published it in I think it was, no, it was early December. I was not finished with it. And then ChatGPT launched. I'm like, oh my gosh. But I actually went to high schools and I was interviewing people about using AI. And I live in Silicon Valley. There's a very tech savvy school. And I remember talking to seniors at that school. And out of the 20 I talked to, before the launch of ChatGPT, I think one of them said that they actually used AI to help them with homework. And so they were using like GPT-3 with the playground and using all this. Most of them just never even heard of it. When ChatGPT happened, that changed everything. And it was a little accessibility change to what OpenAI was already doing. When that happened, I think teachers' initial reaction was, we got to ban it. We got to get
Hmm.
rid of it. We have to run away from it. I think 6 to 9 months later, that shifted a little bit because we got into the summer and teachers, I think, kind of discovered itself like, oh, this could actually help me out. Like there's
Yeah.
value in me as a teacher in using these tools. And I think that's very, very true. And so I think schools, by the summer, or I'm sorry, by the fall of 2023, became much more level thinking about it, like saying, and this is also the time where I think teachers started changing their classes. My son, who's 13 years old, his English teacher no longer assigns homework. Everything is written in class. As a parent, I think that's awesome. Like, I don't want my kid having a bunch of homework at night. I mean, like, they're at school for like 8 hours a day. Let them do the work there. Let them come home. Let them, like, whatever, hang out with us. Like, that's wonderful. And I love that his English teacher did that. I think you're going to start to see more of that. So in controlled environments, you're going to be able to have that. But I think also it's important for teachers to teach students how to use these tools and how to use them
Hmm.
effectively. If I were teaching an English class to a bunch of eighth graders, I would actually give them assignments, not their own, but I would give them assignments saying, okay, now you're going to have homework. I want you to go home with ChatGPT. I want you to have it write a poem. I want you to critique the poem. And then I want you to show all the iterations and literally print out every one and give me the stack. And then I'm going to grade the best one. You working with computer on that and just show me everything you got there and the evolution that it went through. I think that's an awesome assignment. That's going to be closer to how we're working in the future. I think people are going to be much more of like a director of a movie where
Yeah.
you're given an output. You're like, well, no, let's do this. Let's do a little bit more of this and so forth. That's what the writing process is going to be like. But I think for teachers specifically, there's so much opportunity for them.
But they need to change and adapt their teaching style though for this to
Oh my
work.
gosh, man, that's 100%. Like, so if
Yeah.
I had a dream, anybody who's watching this right now, take this idea from me. You have my permission to take this idea, to build this out and give this to the world. I really wish that there was a way where teachers could go in, maybe with a large language model that's running
Hmm.
locally on their laptop. Those exist nowadays. Within there, I could put the information about my students. I could put their names. I could put, have them fill out their friends, what hobbies they like, blah, 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 all this other kind of stuff. And then it would generate effectively a different homework assignment for each and every person in the class. So 30 people in the class, I got 30 different homework assignments. In the world of AI, it's not hard to do that. And the reason why that's important, I could tell from firsthand experience. I grew up in the United States and I love baseball. I learned how to do math by reading baseball cards that have all these statistics and math on the back of them. And so for me, like math, like if I had all of my math classes when I was in grade school, like related to baseball, you bet I would have gotten all those concepts and understood, okay, that's why that's important. And yes, you have to generalize these at some point, but like there's a place for that.
Hmm.
And I think for teachers to start to think about like, oh my gosh, I can use AI to build customized curriculum for every one of my students. That
Oh,
is a huge unlock that was not possible even a couple of years ago.
no. And I grew up in Bangladesh,
Hmm.
where the education system is even backwards than North America or some of the first world countries. So
Okay.
I struggled a lot in school. Like I just could not learn the way that we were being taught or the subjects that were being taught. So I was actually a really bad student up until grade six. Then I decided to kind of leave my school. I spoke with my parents. I was like, I really need good teachers who can homeschool me. So I was homeschooled for a couple of years and I saw a huge difference. But I don't blame like the teachers. It's just public schools are so underfunded. They didn't have ways to customize teaching styles for different students who have different learning needs. So people would just go with like, okay, what's working for everyone? Just, develop a curriculum like that.
Absolutely. I'm glad you shared that because I mean, I think that is, I mean, this is a global thing where, if we are in a situation like, frankly, it was great that you got homeschooled and we're able to get that
Yeah.
individual attention, for the, what, billion plus kids that are in school around the globe, there are not a billion plus teachers to
No.
one-on-one. But an AI is scalable for that.
Yeah.
And you could give a more homeschool-like experience where it is individualized curriculum for the students in a public school or
Mhm.
just in a larger classroom. And that's what's really exciting.
I know, I'm super excited for that too. But one of the concerns, I recently saw a post in social media where a student posted that their teacher gave them a lower grade because they used AI. So how do you think like the guideline, like will it be the universities that have to put some guidelines in place, like how teachers are grading, or do you think it will be really individual perspective based?
Good question. I think look, I think it's probably I don't know specifically there. It's hard to actually recognize what is truly AI.
Yeah.
There are AI detectors out there. OpenAI released an AI detector in January, I believe, of 2023, soon after the launch of ChatGPT. And it was trash. Like, I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah.
Like, it was garbage. I would literally generate something in ChatGPT, put it right into the detector, and it says, "Well, no, that's not written by it." Or like, it was just basic. It was useless. It was flipping a coin. I think the detectors are better today.
Mhm.
They're probably, look, I mean, if I had a sample of what I know a person, if I have somebody handwrite an essay and then have them type an essay at home, would I be able to tell the difference between the two? Probably. But I will also say, just as a writer, like my first draft is nothing like my final draft. Like even a blog post that I write,
Mhm.
I probably go through five, six, seven drafts of that thing
Mhm.
just again and again iterating. I mean, writing is all about iteration. So you could probably look at the first one and look at the final one and say, oh, wait, this one was not yours because it's nothing like
No.
the first one. Well, it was just being iterated again and again. So I think teachers, first of all, really need to be cautious about
Yeah.
calling out kids for that because the AI detection tools, assuming they're using them, they're just not that good. They're probably good enough to bring the kid aside and say, hey, let's talk about this a little bit more.
Mhm.
I don't think they're good enough to say, well, I'm giving you an F or I'm doing this or whatever. Like, that seems a little bit off. Schools, though, it has to be done on a school basis, I think, where they at least set some ground rules for that. But the problem is like in different subjects, it's going to vary greatly. So I know, so I'm actually a student now as well. So in addition to working at a university, I'm actually pursuing a writing degree, which I've been for several years. And I know my professors typically have an AI policy, and that's in the syllabus that they give as part of every, as we start every semester. So I think it's important to just be upfront about what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. The schools need to do this, but I think the teachers then need to take the general guidelines the school gives and customize it specifically for their own style and
Mhm.
their own class. My son's class that I talked about before, his English class, there is no AI at all allowed in there, period. And that's okay. And even if the university says at the school, his middle school says, well, we allow AI for this, this, and this. If the teacher then says, well, no, you can't use it for this class at all, well, you got to respect that.
Yeah.
So it's a hard question. And again, I don't want teachers to be overconfident to really knowing when a kid is using AI because they could be cheating the
No.
old fashioned
Yeah.
way as well. And you would never
Yeah.
know that. It might not be AI.
No. Okay, we talked about how it's going to impact education. Let's talk a little bit about, and this is kind of like a recurring concern, how it's going to change the future of work.
Mhm.
Is AI going to replace jobs? And over the, you are my eighth guest. So all of my guests have different takes on this. And the most common one is yes, it will replace job, but it will also create economies of scale. But how, like, what's your take on that? And how do you think people should prepare for that change?
I'm going to talk about up until we truly get to artificial general intelligence, assuming we do get to that. Because once we hit that and like that time, I don't know, it's all up in the air at that point. And for folks who aren't in like the AI circles, what
Yeah.
artificial general intelligence is generally defined as is where a machine is able to do just about any task the smartest human in the world can do, but just do it infinitely faster and so forth. So, like, it's, just the smartest person in the world is just available at your fingertips to do whatever you want for 20 $20 a month or whatever it would be. That can and will change things. Where we're at today, I think AI is very much a tool and a tool for us to use. Is AI displacing some jobs? Yeah, I think so. But I always like to sort of point to history and other precedents. The internet has destroyed a lot of jobs. It really has. But has the internet created jobs? Absolutely. Social media managers and all these things did not exist 20 years ago. So there's a weighing of that, of like, okay, are more jobs going to be created versus destroyed? I don't know. Are we net better with the internet? I think so. I wouldn't be having this conversation with you. Like, you
No.
folks would not be able to watch this conversation if we did have that. So I think it is a net benefit, but like many jobs were lost in the creation of what we're able to do right now. AI, I think, will be similar. Like, there will be jobs lost, but there will be brand new jobs. I always like to give an example of a McDonald's. So if you go to a McDonald's today, most modern McDonald's, meaning like built in the last 5 years or updated in the last 5 years, they don't have anybody taking your order. It's all touchscreen technology for actually taking your order inside the place. Is that less people working at the McDonald's? Maybe. Are they going to get to the point where the robots are going to be like helping to make the food and so forth? Yeah, they're robots that can do that. They're probably not economical yet. Will they eventually get there? Probably. Will you ever get to a point where a McDonald's has 0 human beings working at it? Probably not, or at least not within potentially even my lifetime, because at the very least, you're just going to have people repairing the robots all the time.
Yeah.
Unless you just have a robot repairing all the robots, which I guess eventually you could have. But for the most part, like, the jobs are just going to shift and they're going
Yeah.
to change and they're going to evolve as part of that. And just like with the ATM was introduced, how we thought all these bank teller jobs would be gone, and in reality, there are more bank tellers today than there were. It also led to much smaller branches. So if you automate a McDonald's, does that mean instead of there's twice as many McDonald's and they make them smaller, like you can
Yeah.
start to do other things like that as well? So yes, AI will destroy jobs, but it also will create jobs. And I think, like, as of now, the best way for people to defend against that is just to understand these tools, understand these tools and use these tools in their jobs as best they can.
And you necessarily don't have to be a super technical person.
Yeah.
Do you have a strong technical background? No.
Oh no, 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 no! My degree was in finance, and my first job was as an accountant. So this is why this resonated with me. I mean, if we want to go back, like when I was at PayPal running the innovation group, I would get demos from machine learning engineers, and I would be like amazed by the awesome things that they would do. It wasn't until I got access to GPT-3, and I remember like getting access so vividly that I was giddy because I was like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, I'm just talking to this thing in English and it's able to do all these amazing things from that. And I think I only got that because I was a non-technical person. I had seen the technical people do it, but I wasn't technical. And I'm like, I'm just talking in English and it is doing all this amazing stuff.
And for me, the best part is like I also on my day job work as a senior manager with the government of Canada,
Hmm.
managing large technical teams, but I'm the only handful of non-technical people there. Before the whole revolution of ChatGPT and I started using it, I would go into meetings. There would be a lot of words that I wouldn't necessarily understand. Now I can just ask ChatGPT in real time. It's like, what do you mean by this? And at least I'll get a quick summary of it.
Exactly. Look, and I think going into the future, like, I don't even know if we're going to define people as technical versus non-technical people
Yes.
anymore. I think the important thing is, do you know how to think like an engineer or think like, and like just kind of follow that logical thought process. That is going to be the skill that is really going to matter versus, how well you can, code in JavaScript.
Because that also you can get a lot of support from AI.
Absolutely. No, no. I mean, languages, engineers, I think computer engineers will probably still learn language just to kind of
Yeah,
see
for
things
sure.
through. But do they have to become expert in it? Coding is the one thing, kind of the canary in the coal mine, if you will, ahead of everything else as far as how good the output of the product is. And a couple reasons for that. One, I think it's because the people building these products are a bunch of engineers. So like that is something they naturally gravitate to and focus on first, solving their own problems. And two, like coding is very logical. It follows certain
Mm-hmm.
steps in the process. People put notes in there. So the AI can then look through code and say, oh, this is what it does, and so forth. So an AI is able to understand code much better than it is able to understand a sonnet or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So it makes sense that it's like it's capturing this code better, but it's just going to be a tool that engineers are using today and are going to just continue to use. I don't think I know engineers who don't use AI tools.
No.
I'm
Yeah.
sure everyone, like probably for the last even 6 months or so, I would say it's pretty much ubiquitous.
But it's just been so fascinating to see, like, to live in this age where we are seeing this happen in real time. So, for you, what are you most excited about the AI and the future? Like, in what industry or in what kind of developments are you excited to see or you're following right now?
For me, medicine and healthcare is the one area where I think is the biggest opportunity. I get to see my doctor for 20 minutes a year or something like that. But I have an AI that can upload all of my vital information, how many steps I'm taking, what my heart rate is like, all the information I get from these wearables and what I do and blood tests and everything else, that could all go into one AI. And I already do this today. It's just not really built for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I could then ask it questions and it's going to understand, it will know parts of my biology extremely well. And again, this is not medical advice for people. Still go see your doctor, all that. I will caveat with that. But as we start to build out what these tools, really customize these tools for that, I think it's actually going to probably be like considered medical malpractice probably in 5 years to not use an AI
Yeah,
in your office when you're with a patient. I think it's going to be so obvious a few years from now that like every doctor needs to be, and it should be doctors using these too. I think it
well, it
should be
should
doctors
be.
and patients, but it doesn't mean doctors won't exist because that personal relationship, that interaction,
You
that
need
actually
that.
really matters in healthcare.
But for me, like, I could really resonate because in Canada, we have a big issue with waiting time. I've been waiting for 2 years to get an allergy test because
Wow.
of how, like, it's hard to get appointment with your family doctor. Finally, when you get an appointment, they limit it to like one prescription. Some do like up to three prescription. So the doctors are overwhelmed, but it's really like a process and the data issue.
Yeah, yeah.
As I was saying, like, I could really resonate with it because now when I go to my doctor, it just takes such a long time, the whole process. And I notice it because they're doing everything manually. The way they're writing the notes and the way I'm getting my information. So it's really like a data information management. And if we apply AI to that, then the whole process can be much more efficient.
I couldn't tell you how many times I would go to the doctor. The doctor's not even looking at me because the doctor is taking notes or whatever. versus versus what should be happening is that it should be listening in the room. It should be hearing our conversation. The doctor should have an earpiece or something like that in where like the AI might be talking to the
Hmm.
doctor and saying, as the doctor's talking out loud, doing this and this with you, but the doctor is maintaining eye contact with you the whole time because again, it's that patient doctor relationship that frankly is one of the most important parts of medicine, to have that. And we're so focused on the note take and all that, which is important, but like, let's have the machine do that.
Yeah.
Have the machine do that stuff. At the end of my visit, when I walk out, say, hey, doc, here are the notes, approve or edit these things. And then the doctor can go off and see their next patient. They're done. I mean, that's a much better experience. And I think the technology can do it. I think a
Yeah.
lot of it is just frankly getting our healthcare system
Approvals.
to embrace it.
Now, I went to Dubai during
Yeah,
COVID with my family, and I came back to Canada, but sadly, both of my parents contacted COVID and they were stuck in Dubai for 2 weeks. But I was so much in awe by their healthcare system in terms of the digitization of it, because
yeah,
I was able to track every test, all of the updates and everything, even chat with their doctors
yeah.
by sitting in Canada on my phone.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And
Yeah.
that's how it should be. That's how it
Yeah.
should be.
So there are countries that are,
Yeah.
doing things like that. And this was like 2020. So hopefully they're now way more advanced. hoping, because this was like no AI tools. It was just using the software. But imagine like if you integrate AI and automations, even more process improvement like this, the healthcare system could be revolutionary. Like we can serve more people.
Absolutely. No, it's going to be give a much better quality of care. There's going to be less side effects. It's going to be able to catch much more. It's a better experience for the doctors. It's a better experience for the patients. We know we need to have the courage as for Canada, for the US as well, to just start to say like, okay, like how do we actually make this happen?
So what would be like your one last message that you kind of want to share with the audience?
A last message for anybody watching this or listening to this right now is if you're not using the tools, use them. Like, just try them. You don't have to take a class. You don't have to read about it first. You don't need to have a manual. Literally, and most of these are at least free for the basic versions. Go to them, talk to them. And if you're like, hey, ChatGPT, I don't know what to actually do with you. What are you good for? Say that and say,
Yeah.
like, I mean, just start there. Say, hey, this is who I am. Describe yourself however I want. I'm some fool on a podcast told me that I need to talk to you. So here I am. What do I need to do with you? And just start that conversation. The more that we as a society like understand and embrace these tools and just learn how to use them more effectively for ourselves and for our own lives, the better off we're going to be. Again, I live in Silicon Valley. I don't want this to just be a tool that a bunch of geeks in Silicon Valley are using and have a huge advantage on the rest of the world. I want everybody using these things to get familiar, to get comfortable. These can be a tool that is going to bring people up, and that's what they should be used for, not just for the people who already have access to, all of these skills and so forth. So that's what I would say. Use the tools.
Use the tools. With all that, thank you so much, Mike, for joining us, sharing your insights. Really appreciate it. And I really hope I see more of your newsletters. I'll keep an eye out for those. With anyone listening to this, you can connect with Mike on LinkedIn as well. Thank you so much. Until another episode.
Thanks, Manasa. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.